Welcome back to the broadcast. Interestingly, we are still on the newspapers, but equally we have already gotten into the discussion, and so I'll have that moment where the newspapers will guide us into the discussions, because again, some of the issues that have been captured are the very same ones that I had planned for us to discuss this morning. This includes President Uhuru Kenyatta's address to the Mount Kenya region, also to speak yesterday, and also including that conversation of hustlers and dynasties that we had before we went for a break, and importantly, the politics of Nairobi. Still in studio, Dr. Moses Mwangi and Gloria Oroba, and equally Solomon Kuria. Ladies and gentlemen, back to it, and yes, I hope you had finished your line of thought in regards to the hustlers and the dynasties. And this was my point, that in as much as we'd want to say that we're missing out the point, especially when we focus on these sideshows, reality is that that is what makes the politics interesting. Reality is that that is common in the game of politics, because every other, party will always come with their own way of trying to entice the common mwananchi with their words, with the slogans, and everything. And so that is where the conversations will always culminate from. But importantly, we need to find a ground where, even as we're having all this, we do not miss out on the most important things. And so, Solomon, first of all, looking at this dynasty and hustler and all that, one would want to ask, what is the difference between these two and what it is that the president spoke about in terms of, getting that aspect of rotational presidency, that aspect of a tribe, which is something that is engraved in us, but we want to run away from, and many equally castigating the president for the same.
What the president wanted people to see, it is that the logic that is being driven by the deputy president, it's unfair to Kenyans. It is unfair to the peace that we have been enjoying in this country. And then he tried also to bring out the aspect of hypocrisy in his deputy president. And I would say right here, right now, the deputy president isn't a hustler. That is number one. Number two, he doesn't even believe in what he says. He's just hoodwinking Kenyans. And I will tell you for a fact, Deputy President is taking us for a ride.
Before we even fire shots, Solomon, allow me to ask this, before we even fire shots on this one, let's just take that scenario of the president and see how he gets to counter that, like you rightfully put it. So do you counter that with something that is more damaging? Because to many, that sounded as, what is this coming from the symbol of unity?
It isn't damaging.
Okay.
It isn't damaging. What he is simply saying, that if you're trying to divide Kenyans into the, hustlers and dynasties, and if that is the logic, if that is the idea Kenyans want to engage in,
then we can counter this with a tribal card?
No, it's not a tribal card.
Okay.
I can also say, anyone else can say that, okay, you're saying it's hustler versus dynasties. Anyone else can stand up and say, then two tribes have been on power. So he didn't actually say that it is going to be tribal, that he's supporting, the other 40 tribes to come against these two.
Solomon, you need to acknowledge the importance of communication in this case, and the fact that this is the president speaking and not any other.
Let us not misquote.
Okay.
Because I've seen guys misquoting. Because he said, kama hiyo dio logic. You see, kama hiyo dio. He didn't say that mimi kama president nasema. No, he said, kama hiyo dio logic, na mimi naweza sema.
And you will easily get away with it if this was Solomon speaking. But this is the president, the symbol of unity speaking.
Let me just put clarity out here. I don't expect that our president, Uhuru Kenyatta, will even understand or would even begin to understand who a hustler is. And this is why he's so frustrated. A person who was born in State House, a person who was raised by a sitting president, a person who only knew chartered flights, and literally when he was in the US, he said, I'd like to do some manual labor to see what that feels like. A person who actually, till his adulthood is when he learned how to speak Swahili. You understand? I don't think this is a person who understands what a hustler or even the slight definition, or even the inaccurate definition that we have been told we are pushing, he would not understand that. And so his frustration, even with him trying to put that analogy, that if you're trying to define us as hustlers versus dynasties, then I might as well come and say, you know, two tribes versus the other tribes. You see, even the way he's trying to compare this, it shows that he really doesn't understand what's going on.
Why do you suppose the DP understands this more?
I will say this for a fact. It's not only the deputy president, but right now, people on the ground resonate with it because it speaks to the economic injustices that a majority of Kenyans have been undergoing.
Before we get to that, Gloria,
economic injustice.
Before we get to that, Gloria, it's only fair that we look at the people or the first person who's propagating this or who's pushing for this. And we've literally spoken about the president in line with this before we come to you, Dr. Moses. And evidently, it is the leader of the hustler nation, that is the DP, who's pushing for this. He's been a member of parliament.
That's wrong. Let me just clarify that. I was in another station where they said, why can't the youth start thinking from themselves and be influencers and change makers? Why do we keep being pushed into people's narratives? Let me just clarify that on national TV. The narrative of the hustlers versus the dynasty never came from William Ruto. It actually came from youth groups. And I can say openly, he stole it or he borrowed it from us. Because he realized, this is what I've been trying to push in terms of economic development. This is just an actual way that resonates with the people. These terminologies that these youth groups are using, mimi ni hustler, mimi ni sewa.
So this is technically about what he thinks resonates with the people, and it's got nothing to do with what he is as an individual.
When you're pushing for economic empowerment for those who have been marginalized and oppressed, and you've been using these terminologies that are not resonating with the ground, you've been using this Oxford type of dictionary words which are not resonating with the ground, and then you go to the ground and you hear the youth and you listen to the youth leaders and stuff telling you, we're actually speaking the same language. The only thing is the terminologies.
He's been the minister, he's now the DP, he's supported a dynasty, well, from what we see. In 97, President Moi, 2002, President Uhuru Kenyatta, 2007, at some point, Raila Odinga, 2013 and 2017, President Uhuru Kenyatta. All these are within the dynasties. What do you suppose will inform the change in his
those are not within the dynasties. That is where...
From what he says...
No, let me just clarify, because...
Let's allow Dr. Moses to
At the end of the day, you're talking about a person who has grown, career development, started from the bottom. Look at where we are now.
So
are you trying to say we are punishing people who are working hard to grow within the career ladder, within politics or otherwise, because they do not belong to certain families?
All right, in this case then, would we say that, well, having looked at his political background and moving forward, he probably has picked lessons, and Kenyans can trust, and these hustlers, the people who are struggling down on ground, can trust the DP to bring a change? Dr. Moses?
Well, I think if you can look at a balance of issues, we would say that the real owners of hustler, the common people, the youth groups, this was their idea, which has been stolen,
borrowed,
and politicized.
Not stolen.
Borrowed.
Well,
change makers.
Please give me a chance. I am using my words, not yours. I'm saying it has been stolen and somebody is running away with it. And it is resonating and it is making people believe that, wow, we are in the right thing. Let me say this. I wore my first pair of shoes when I was going to high school. Only because the school I was going to, Alliance High School, required that you go there with a pair of shoes. I am a doctor. I've worked in the healthcare system. I am working. I believe in merit. Yet, I have a problem with political leaders who have been in place for the longest time I know, to begin to imagine that they are the change that the real hustlers are looking for. I have a problem with that. And for me, I would rather we are having a conversation of how the downtrodden, the farmers in my county who need to sell coffee. I went to school because of coffee. How can we make coffee work better? The tea. How can we make the trade and the transactions that take place between private sector and government work well. I dare say some of the people pushing the hustler movement have not gone through that. They have actually taken advantage of systems that were not properly checked and took advantage, and they got rich very, very quickly. They are at the top of the ladder. It is true they came from there, but the way they got there is not how the mama boga, the real hustler, how the youth who is trying to create some beds for our ICUs, how the people who are making masks locally, and they can actually move their businesses to the next level.
But just how much are these people doing?
That trajectory, because in the end there is a lot of deception that comes. It's a good conversation, and what I see is that if the real hustlers, the youth, the downtrodden, the people who have been disadvantaged by the system that has been there, were the one driving the agenda, I think we can have a healthy conversation about that and about a better Kenya.
And true to it, it's the conversation that we are having, one, with the BBI, so they say, but the very same people are the same who are pushing, the same people that Dr. Mwangi speaks about, the ones that have been there in the longest of time, have been dancing in the grave for the longest of time. Just who is out here to create alternative leadership? How much involved is the electorate in terms of bringing this change that they all require in terms of leadership? Because, I mean, we see them dancing to the tune of the very same people who've been in existence.
I think if you allow me just a minute.
Yes.
Because there's something I alluded to before you cut me short and gave a chance to her, that the owner of this hustler narrative is hoodwinking Kenyans. The deputy president is hoodwinking Kenyans, and I support it this way. On 9th December 2015, the deputy president himself was in Uganda campaigning for Yoweri Museveni in person. By that time, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni had ruled Uganda for that years. This time, he has sent his support to Museveni. And now, Museveni, by the end of this term, he will have ruled Uganda for over 40 years. So Museveni is not a dynasty in Uganda.
But in Kenya,
William Ruto supports him. He comes back to Kenya. He says Uhuru Kenyatta is a dynasty for ruling Kenya for only 7.5 years now. He says Raila Amolo Odinga is dynasty for being the longest serving leader of opposition. Who is hoodwinking who? Do you see it? This person, the agenda he's driving, himself doesn't own it. Because for real, he can't own it. He is not a hustler. This person was fed for the first time by Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. When he was 24 years at the university, Moi picked him, bought him clothes, fed him, gave him his first car, gave him his first piece of land. Are we together?
Yeah.
Made him, you know, to be the leader of the YK 92. They made a lot of money. They were given even a leeway. These guys even printed money in the 1990s with Jirongo. Are we together?
Right.
And by then, he rose to power in 1997. He was already a member of parliament. He then joined Uhuru Kenyatta, like you say, you put it. In 2007, he was with Raila. In 2013, Uhuru Kenyatta made him the deputy president. He has not walked through that ladder. No.
Okay, well,
started by Moi,
right
Moi, Uhuru, Raila.
Back to Uhuru.
It is biting the hard that fed you. That is the best definition of William.
Is it not getting to that point of realization and realizing that I've been doing it all wrong, and they have been doing it all wrong, and I can only be the person who can bring this change that Dr. Moses speaks about?
Every time I hear someone map out William Ruto's life,
journey,
his journey, where he began, who fed him, like they say, who fed him, who pushed him, you know, nothing is being credited to him. It's almost as if he was there, someone pushed him, another person pushed him, you understand?
Yeah.
Every time I hear someone literally go down that ladder, I want to ask them, William Ruto was not alone during that time. he has so many of his peers who also got a hand up. What he's calling, he was fed by Moi, I call mentorship. You understand? I call somebody, like what we are actually looking for the youth, we are looking for those who've made it in these political circles to give us a hand up, to hold our hand and say, by the way, this is how you get into politics. When, and you know, I keep asking myself, was William Ruto alone in Y2K, this youth? Was he alone? Was he the only one who was given a hand up? As I go back to my analogy, you pick 5 interns, you place them in management. How many of those people prosper because of merit? How many of those people are picked up because of names? And that's simply what we're talking about. Yes, it is a fact that he got into the political space by getting a hand up from political leaders. But it's not a fact that once he got a hand up, he just sat there and waited for Moi to make magic happen. He worked his way through the chains. And I can tell you this, Linda, because I'm very new into politics.
Okay.
Yeah, and I kept on saying, I'm not a politician. And someone said, you're in politics, that's what it is. I'm very new into it. Once in a while here or there, I get some people give me a hand up, you know. I get leaders such as Gladys Boshole actually say, you know what, this is not what you should be doing, you get a hand up. But does that mean that when I will credit my whole success to the fact that my mentor was, for instance, Gladys Boshole, or to the fact that my mentor or the first person when I walked into a political gathering was His Excellency, the Deputy Governor Maangi. You understand? You cannot take away all the hard work. You cannot take away all the
issue.
No, you cannot take away
the issue is turning against them. And
no,
now saying
that is the issue, because he tried to
turning against them.
He tried to say that William Ruto is not a hustler, because if anything, it is Moi who put him where he is. And I'm trying to say that you cannot credit someone's success by the fact that he got mentored or got a hand up by one person.
I think you're losing.
So at the end of the day,
let's bring
at the end of the day, this brings it back to the definition of the hustler, which people are refusing to accept because they know what it is. The definition being hard work and merit. We must reach a point where this country actually recognizes hard work and merit and rewards it.
I don't think that is.
Dr. Mwangi, let's come back to this. And I know you probably would want us to focus more on what it is that bedevil the people of Kenya, but reality is that these conversations are here. And what's, or so to speak, is that instead of them giving birth to better conversations of, prioritizing the interests of the Kenyans, they give birth to another, branch of matters tribe, branch of matters, regional or rotational level of presidency. What can we do first to run away from this, or stick to it and still attain the goals of making Kenya better for the people?
Both narratives are wrong. The narrative of tribe, rotational president is wrong.
Okay.
Because it throws away what can drive this country. What can drive this country is merit.
Yeah.
It is you get the best man or the best woman to occupy the position that they are suited to drive the nation. Both of them are wrong. I don't know how many Kenyans were around when Rwanda went to the dogs. It is not long ago when we saw massacre and a kind of thing you don't want to see just here across Rwanda. And therefore, conversations that drive a wedge between people, conversation that drives a wedge between those who have and those who do not have, is a conversation that can bring about bloodshed, that can bring about the outcome that you don't want.
We are an ethno-majoritarian
society. About this region and that region and that region. I think I love what Julius Nyerere did for Tanzania, which is to make Tanzanians feel Tanzanians. I would like Kenyans to feel Kenyans. I would like a Kenyan who is struggling, let's get it. Yes, there are hustlers. There are people who are struggling. Some of them got a degree. I had down there in Githurai some years back, some young men who are trading with boga, cabbages they are throwing, asking themselves, my friend, my brother, tell me, how does cos theta apply here? These are graduates who should possibly be applying the skills and knowledge that they acquired.
Yeah.
I would rather, so in other words, yes, it is reality, and this is the conversation we are having. We can't run away from it, but we must also say, as Kenyans, if we are going to drive an idea of people who are downtrodden, who do not have an opportunity, it is true if my child has a better opportunity than I had, because my father did not go to school. I went to school, so my child has a better opportunity. But that does not mean that my child now should be looked at as different as any other Kenyan. Because wherever they are, once they finish college, they are looking for jobs, they are looking to do businesses like any other child. Yes, maybe they have a head start than we do. So my point is this. As we talk about our nation going forward, how do we close this conversation and come back to the line? We need to go back to the basic. Close the conversation about rotational president. It's not good for our nation. Close the conversation about creating a conflict between hustlers and so-called dynasty. We also possibly need to have a definition of what a dynasty is, as much as we also need to have a definition of what a hustler is, both in the dictionary and in the common understanding.
How can we close these conversations, Dr. Moses, when we evidently see some communities being marginalized, when we evidently know that, and this is what some of them have argued, that in as much as we want to overlook what it is that the president said, there's some level of truth in it, because someone from Northeastern would love to find or to see one of their own somewhere at the top of the helm. And reality is that, again, like he said, two communities have ruled the nation. I mean, what happens to the other 40-something, and what do you get? How do you have a conversation that strikes a balance, that get them to that point where they'll say it is, well, let's forge our way forward as a country, as opposed to looking at the aspect of tribe?
By the time we came to have the Constitution 2010,
yes,
a movement that began in the 1990s, Ken Matiba, Charles Rubia, and all that, took a long time, and then we came and gave ourselves a constitution whereby we devolved to the counties. If you go to the northern county of Mandera, which is within Kenya, it is during this dispensation of the 2010 constitution, for example, where they have been able to do even simple operations we call cesarean section.
Yeah.
The healthcare has begun to improve. The road infrastructure has begun to improve. We should be looking at how do we strengthen this devolution story so that we can have development taking place in different parts at the same pace. The Constitution also anticipated to have what we call, a fund that makes those counties that were left behind to catch up.
And
equalization.
Speaking of which,
so
then,
those kind of conversations that strengthen what we already have in terms of distribution of resources, then now also reaching out to the mama boga, the farmer, that person who is struggling in Gekomba, who is the real hustler. How can we make that person be able to put a square meal on the table and have a scenario where their business can grow and the government is supporting that? Doctor, those kind of things.
Doctor, they say
and I have no quarrel with Deputy President William Ruto. I have no quarrel with him. He has come from somewhere and he has risen to where he is.
Yes.
Isaac Ruto, the same. Raila Odinga, the same. Kalonzo Musyoka, everybody has a background from where they have come from. They have a story. And we need to hear what do they want to do for this country to make it better.
Let's
instead
bring
of
the
bringing
the rest.
a red herring. You call
Speaking
it a red
of which,
herring.
they say this is coming in with the BBI. It is interesting to note that when you oppose the BBI, then you're automatically in a way labeled as a hustler, or you're labeled as a Team Tanga Tanga. First, do you suppose that within the BBI we have some of the answers that we seek as a people that Dr. Moses is speaking about?
Yes. We have very serious answers in there when it comes to inclusivity. Because why people fight for presidency, like it is a matter of life and death, is because of exclusion. And like you put it, some tribes feel that they have been left out. So the best way is to riot and say, no, you must include us. And now BBI is coming in with some solutions. It is not perfect, but it is trying to answer some of the problems we have. Like, on the issue of inclusivity, we have the aspect of winner takes all, whereby you win the presidency, and then all power rests with you. We are saying now, let us introduce the position of the prime minister, who will be from the party with the majority in parliament, in the National Assembly for that matter. And then this person will sit in the cabinet. Then we are also saying, if you emerge second in the race of presidency, you automatically get an office. You become the official leader of opposition. In a way, you have not won the big seat, yes, but you're not out. You have been empowered through the constitution. You get budgetary allocation to play the role of oversight.
Why is it about you and not the people at large?
You cannot say
and these individuals,
we cannot all fit in parliament. What there is, you are a representative of the people.
Is it not one thing that everyone needs to understand, that if we cannot all fit in parliament, then there has to be a winner and a loser?
This is the point. Those people who elected President Uhuru Kenyatta believed that he would represent their issues if he is the president. Equally so, those who elected Raila Amolo Odinga thought that he carries their best interests.
Is there not going to be conflict of interest when we have...
And this is the point.
Yes.
This is the point. We have seen what has happened in America between Donald and this guy.
Biden.
Donald could not believe how I have 75 million votes, my friend. Why are you telling me that I have lost? With 75 million people who believe in me, have I lost? So he could not take it. And you could clearly see that if there was a window, like we are having in the BBI, where a winner doesn't take all, you become and you are facilitated by the government to play the role of the official leader of opposition, there would not be those temperatures over there. In Gikuyu we say, yani you don't put up your house, copying your neighbor. No, you put it according to how you feel right. Let me say this. The danger in the conversation we are having right now about the hustler, and I would like to speak to my fellow young people. Someone is trying to tell you that you don't have because someone else has. That is literally the thing. We have never been president because some people have been presidents. We have not been able to own this because some people have owned. And it is very dangerous because this one is going to trickle down. You have had in the last 1 week of a vehicle that was put up in blaze simply because this guy is driving a Subaru Outback and knocks down a motorbike. Something that comes automatically into the heads of those people is, huyu ni tajiri amenigonga, amenidharau kwa sababu mimi niko naka motorbike. I'm just riding a motorbike and this guy is driving, so he thinks I'm lesser.
Is that why
that is the
everyone
motivation.
is coming guns blazing on the DP?
Yes, because already,
is it justified?
Already we have that problem of people who feels they are poor are against those people whom they think have some money.
How do we elevate these people who are poor?
I'm telling you, if you have never been a victim, at least you know someone who has been a victim. You just touch a motorbike, and maybe that guy was in the wrong. You touch him, the conversation is changed. This was not an accident. You guy, because you have a car and I don't have, you knocked me down. Now someone else comes in and says, this guy has a car and you don't have. It is his fault.
Would you not be bitter? We have talked about, since independence, dealing with poverty. And reality is that years down the line, the older Kenyatta, we have the younger Kenyatta, we still are talking about poverty. Don't you suppose that they would be justified to be bitter today?
Turning the poor against the rich is not the solution. It is going to set this country.
What then is the
to door.
solution, Gloria?
And Dr. Moses,
Linda,
just a minute. Dr. Moses said something about Rwanda. And I wish people listen to him. It is not something we would want to experience in Kenya.
All right.
Hustler versus dynasty is the poison for this country.
If you're against the BBI, you're evidently a hustler, so to speak, or you probably are Team Tanga Tanga. I mean, how do we get ourselves to have healthy conversations first, revolving around some of these issues that we are fronting as proposals in changing the scenario, in, elevating poverty, alleviating poverty, in terms of changing and bringing development to the people, getting Kenyans to that point where they feel like indeed we have a government that is working for us?
First of all, my position with the BBI is I've never been against it. I just don't think it's time to have a conversation about bringing in an expanded executive. I feel as though that is a misplaced conversation, and I've always consistently said that even if it's about uniting the people, they already excluded the youth from the process, and therefore I don't feel like it is a conversation that is relevant, and I don't think that is a conversation that is truthful if indeed it's about uniting the people. Now, I want to say two things, by the way. In Kenya, there are two things you cannot talk about without those who are guilty feeling uncomfortable.
Okay.
You can't talk about land. The moment you say, okay, you want us to feel like we are all Kenyan, let us go back and revisit the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission. Let us give reparations to those who lost their lands to the oppressors. Let us talk about why the Kenyatta family owns masses and masses of land. You know what's going to happen? People say, guys, that is not the attitude we should bring to the table. This thing, they start. It's a very, very uncomfortable conversation. The other thing you cannot talk about is why we have such a huge gap between those who have and those who don't have. Why we have every other boundary of a suburb, of a prestigious suburb, is now bordered by a slum. When you bring that conversation, they say, guys, they'll always be like that. Life, some animals are more than, you understand? So this conversation about the hustler versus the dynasty, it is time that we had it. Just like Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta went and shook hands and said, guys, we are dealing with a lot of things, let us unite the country. They also spoke about shared prosperity in that conversation. Shared prosperity trickles down to the hustler versus the dynasty. It really does. Because when you read the Building Bridges initiative, they are telling you that we want to push that even the less privileged have got opportunities, that their businesses or they get employment to be able to come to the table at par, to be able to afford a meal. That is the same conversation that the hustlers versus the dynasties are having. Now, there's this thing that my colleague talked about and said, if you hit a boda guy, immediately they come down and they rain down. It is true. It is true. But are you crediting that to the hustler versus the dynasty? No.
Yes.
They've always done it way before. Do you know why? Because the systems, the policing systems have failed those who have been oppressed. The policing system has come out to defend the privileged. So what are these boda people? And it's not only boda. Bodabodas, they have their organized, Wakonaizo Mashimo, the chairmans, their circles. They have decided if the government is not going to deal with us, if the government is not going to empower us economically, we are going to provide ourselves security, and we are going to start up our own table banking financial institutions and organizations. So what they have said is, we have witnessed that every time there is a rogue driver, we have witnessed that majority of the time when a rich person who is privileged, who we call dynasty because they know they can get up, and I will say this because there's personally, not this year, last year, I was driving down from Yaya Center, and there's this lawyer who actually got accolades for the presidential, he got an award, this is in Naitwanga Nini, Izoma, HSC, what. And I was literally waiting for the light to go green at Yaya Center. This guy, we were 2 lanes all waiting, following. He came directly from the wrong side, overtook all these lanes.
With a combination.
Came right with his presidential awards and whatever nonsense, came right in front of me, and then, you know, I was upset. So you know what happened? I cancelled. I said, in fact, it has to stop today, because we can't be coming to Twitter and social media and whatever to complain. I followed this guy to his office. Unajua alipita na nikamfuata all the way to his office. And I reached his office and I spent like 15 minutes. I said, I want to speak to this person. How can we, just because we don't have presidential awards, just because we are not in the inner system, just because we are not ABCD, we are standing there following the rules, waiting for the green light. This guy comes and becomes rogue. You understand? That those border people, if you understand what they're... No, that is one...
Oh, that was Dynasty because she was driving.
No. That is one example.
Okay.
That is one example on a very small scale of what the common Kenyan has to deal with on a daily basis, and they literally have nobody to... You know, when I went to this guy's office, so that you understand what those border people are dealing with, do you know, he was short of calling security for me. He told me, get out of here. I said, how can you do that? How can you, literally, we're all Kenyans. And I didn't know who this person was until when I looked at the name of the, and then someone told me, oh, unajua huyo ni lawyer wakina so and so, nini. So, you know, he's untouchable. You understand? The rage that I had no option that pack it in me, go to my car, and now my day has been messed. Border people have had that for a very long time. The police system have literally refused to collaborate with them and work with them, and so therefore they have formed their own systems of protection. The solution is the government should be aware. You know, I didn't talk over them. The solution is the government needs to be more aware on what this commoner is facing and decide, okay, this is what the commoner is facing. I will choose to expel these services that I have to them.
The government interestingly knows all this. And President Uhuru Kenyatta, in his address to the Mount Kenya region, so to speak, Dr. Moses Mwangi acknowledges the ills that sit within the society. He acknowledges all this as the president, but equally says he's in control. One of the things that people have questioned, how do you say you are in control as a father of the home, yet things are going south and you're seated there and you're now pulling blame games and you're now pointing fingers and you're not doing anything to do this? You probably speak of individuals that you certainly know. Let's pick some of these stories that have been captured. You know, this would probably give us an overview, or technically what it is the president spoke about. Stolen cash being used to fight BBI. That is what the president acknowledges or says. And President rallies his Mount Kenya support base around Unity project, says it is the best outcome for the region as he dismisses Ruto and his allies for opposing initiative promoting hustler versus dynasties narrative. That is on the People Daily. Let's look at what is on the Daily, or the Standard newspaper says, a tough call for Uhuru. Succession question with a restive Mount Kenya backyard. The president turns to vernacular radio stations to thrash hustler narrative, make impassioned plea for support for BBI, and to declare that he is yet to pick his preferred successor. And a couple of issues that have been touched right there. And I mean, we all probably listened to this, so we had a chance to pick on some of the things that the president spoke about. He speaks about Nairobi, he speaks about the tough times in Nairobi, in the country. The Daily Nation speaks of, Uhuru fires at Ruto. President launches full-blown attack on his deputy over 2022. And the aspect of corruption has come out. You've seen what it is that Kalonzo Musyoka spoke about, and, equally firing shots at the DP. There is that knowledge of the ills in the society. There is that machinery to deal with these ills, but nothing really is happening.
Yes, I think we all live in Kenya, and we all know that where we are not happy. Things are not going the way we would want. The level of corruption in this nation is high. Everybody knows. I think the president is in a privileged position to know and to even give figures of 2 billion a day. And if that information is out there, the question we'll be asking is, why hasn't anybody done anything about it? The things that, the anger that is with the majority of Kenyans who are jobless, that anger, if it is not managed well, we may end up with what we call a banana republic, which is where there is no law and order. So when we gave ourselves the new constitution of 2010, the president is one arm. He has the responsibility to lead the nation. But we also created other organs to deal with issues, corruption like that, money that is being stolen.
Mm-hmm.
One would ask ourselves, where is EACC?
Right.
One would ask ourselves, what systems have we put in place to put these people who are stealing from the nation to book? Now, when the president says money is being stolen and he's the president of the republic, one wonders what a common mwananchi would then say, or that other business. So there is a need for us to change. The way things are, we are not in a good situation.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, how do we move to a better situation?
Okay.
And that is, we are headed to an election. The president, in his wisdom, together with Right Honorable Raila Odinga, came up with what they thought was a solution through BBI.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a little quarrel with the BBI, although personally I know the context. A lot of Kenyans don't understand what is in that BBI. This BBI that has some good proposals, it may also have areas of improvement. Why can't the person, Mama Boga, have the opportunity to understand it, so that as we have the conversation to see whether the change we need is in there or not? I would like to go back to the main conversation and say, there is a man in my village, he's now deceased. He struggled and came to Nairobi and owned some plots in Kibera. He had several houses, not even a stone house, mud houses, which he was renting. Then, in 2007, 2008, when this country sank to its lowest, immediately after the elections, some people occupied those houses and said they were renting, now they are not going to pay. So this man, and he had really struggled
To set them up.
was seen as a landlord, and he came back to the village and lived a miserable life. Property that he owned no longer belonged to him. We saw it in Huruma,
Yes.
where after the elections, where the nation, people fought. We saw people who had struggled to put up little houses, denied ownership of even that little. And that kind of narrative is where we are now headed. And that is why, for me, because I remember that, and I was around when the Rwandan genocide took place. I have worked in Eastern Africa. I was head of the World Number One Vaccine Company. I was traveling to Kigali. I was working to vaccinate people against meningitis there when all these things crumbled. And so when I hear this narrative, I go back to George Orwell's book, Animal Farm. Animal Farm, and I would like people to read. Yes, I think we need change in this nation. We must have change. What is that change that we need to have so that this inequality, because there is a growing inequality, the people who have are becoming richer. The people who, even the middle class, some of us came from down there. We look after so many people, but before you move forward, there are so many more to look after. You are not able. Something needs to be fixed.
All right. Well,
Yes.
we probably the people of Murang'a are watching and are looking at you to see whether indeed you're amongst the few who are going to bring in the alternative leadership that we speak about this morning. One Juguna Mwangi is watching and says the Hustler dynasty narrative has got nothing to do with the rich versus the poor. It is about the oppressed versus the oppressor. And the conversation seeks to bring us back to provision of equal opportunities for all. Sends greetings to you. He says you're his incoming governor, and he equally is eager to see whether indeed you bring policies that are going to be important for the people of Murang'a. And bringing us to the address again of the president yesterday. First of all, this comes in the wake of that letter from Kangata and, the conversation that there's a trouble brewing in the Mount Kenya region. And probably one would want to argue, why is it that then we focus much on the Mount Kenya region, yet we are running away from that narrative of or a region, a tribe, and all this. And so do you suppose that one, the president's conversation yesterday was significant in countering Kangata's letter, and does it speak to the people of Mount Kenya?
It speaks, one, and then it, as you say, countering Kangata's a letter, which I'm sure got to the president. I would say, asking why he's speaking to the people of Mount Kenya. And at the same time, we are talking about inclusivity.
Yes.
We are talking about unity as a nation. Let me tell you this. We must be honest to ourselves and stop sugarcoating issues.
Right.
No, you hear someone speaking on TV or radio and saying, no, Kenya is united, blah, blah. They go down there. They go straight to their tribes and start giving them stories. Because we have never appreciated one fact. And this is what I believe in. Kenya is a nation of nations. And this is it. There is the Kaba nation that believes Kalonzo Musyoka has the key to their success.
Okay.
There is a Luya nation that is now coming to an agreement that Modavadi carries the key. There are the Mbiji Kendas who are running around Joho. There are the Kalejins who are running around William Samoei Ruto. There are the Kikuyus who are behind Uhuru Kenyatta. The day we shall appreciate that is where our strength starts, and deal with the political chaos that comes in an election, because that is the only disadvantage that we fight as communities after an election. But in all the other 4 years, we have lived in peace and harmony. We must appreciate that we are over 44 tribes. How can we live together? How can we benefit from each other? And actually, talking about my tribe and talking good of my tribe is more good when I compare now with a Mijikenda. And that is why even BBI is proposing that on 26th of every December, we have Utamaduni Day, where we exchange these cultural values amongst ourselves. It is our strength. It is not our weakness. Being in more tribes is not our weakness. And therefore, the president speaking to the tribe where he comes from. Because charity begins at home. If you are fought at home, my friend, you cannot be able to go further and unite the nation.
And we are not challenging this in any way, but I'll take a scenario that plays out in a country, for instance, like, Nigeria. And the Francophone and the Anglophone conversations that have been, rife down there. The likes of our neighbors Ethiopia and the different tribes that they resonate with, and the level of animosity that has culminated from that. On numerous occasions you've seen the likes of the Anglophone or the English speaking Nigerians feel like, why is it that the president is going out there to address the nation and sometimes to speak to the people in French? Like, honestly, where is he leaving the rest of us? And we do not want to equate this to that. But then again, there are some dissenting voices, and there are some voices that I feel like, where does this leave us?
Let me ask you.
Yeah.
When is the last time a Luya tuned to Inoro FM? When is the last time a Kalejin tuned to Kameme FM?
Probably they've never, maybe.
That is the point.
Okay.
If he was here at TV47
and spoke
national
Kikuyu,
television,
we'll question
and
that.
spoke Kikuyu,
okay,
because, and I'm mentioning those radio stations
right,
because they are on the newspapers.
Right.
I don't want any offense. But if he was here and started speaking in Gikuyu,
we'd
then
question that.
Honestly, we would question. But let me say this. This issue of now saying, and there's something he addressed, and I like the doctor, and he has talked about a vaccine and how he went around the world. You can see he is an accomplished man. You are an accomplished journalist, a news anchor. Someone is admiring you, and probably, most likely, your daughter or your son may admire what you do. But then, someone someday might say that, oh, your daughter will not become a journalist because you are a journalist. Okay. The president said, and I really sympathized with him, that, oh, you guys are telling me that I was not supposed to be president because my father was president. Are you not then saying that someone cannot be a doctor because their father was a doctor? And it requires a third eye for you to see that the sons of Raila Amolo Odinga, even extended to his sons, to his brother's sons, Oburu Odinga, and Uhuru Kenyatta and his sons. Yeah. Someone is trying to make Kenyans see that, oh, the sons of Uhuru Kenyatta do not have a chance in this country because their father was a president.
Is that the case?
But mine, because I have never been president, so my son and myself stand a chance. Is that the ground we want to go to? Have we diverted now from what is saying meritocracy, whereby you become president because you deserve it, not from the community you have come from or the family you come from, for that matter? Okay. And I heard the Tangatanga guys saying, oh, it is not the communities who have been leading Kenya. Actually, it is the family of Uhuru Kenyatta.
That has been,
and I agree with them. Okay. I agree with them. But let me also tell them that actually it is not the family of Uhuru Kenyatta that is at the presidency. It is Uhuru Kenyatta.
Probably the bone of contention is, the bone of contention then could be, it is okay, it could be him, it could be his family, but just how much are the Kenyans set to gain out of this? How much are they gaining out of this? And probably if it was going all well in the system, maybe most of the people would not even argue. And on other occurrences, you've had some of, you know, the country or the citizens arguing that, you know what, we still want this person because he's done well in terms of leading the nation.
This is what I'm saying, and I'm answering together with what you have asked. Anyone
Make it brief so Gloria can come in.
Anyone who belongs to Kenyatta's family doesn't become president by default simply because Uhuru Kenyatta is the president.
Definitely not.
And we must agree that where we are heading to as a nation, it will not matter who is at the presidency. Because BBI is proposing we devolve now 35% of our resources. I am hopeful that the next president will come and say, oh, let us make it 45. Such that all the resources now will go to the ground. And you will bear me witness, one day, one time, this presidency, nobody will give a damn about it. Because the resources will have gone down, 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 trickled. And that's why I support BBI. Another, for that reason, that 5% will go down. Yes.
I want
the president's address?
The president, it was not an address. Okay. It was the president's vernacular rant.
Okay.
It was a vernacular rant.
Why do they are rants?
Yeah, it's a rant.
Why do you say they are? Because, I mean, he complained a lot. Okay.
Tell someone to go on the Oxford Dictionary and get the definition. Yes. This was not a presidential address. This was the president's vernacular rant. Okay. Addressing his people of Mount Kenya. And I wanted to ask a question when he was talking and saying, oh, you know, it was this station and that station, so therefore we can't fault him. When was the last time we saw a president going to a vernacular station to address anything? Let's start from there. Let's think about the presidents we have had down from more.
Where? You of Kibaki.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yes. And I need you to go, you really have to think, you have to Google, you have to, then you're like, oh, there's that one time, it is not a common thing. And the fact that he felt the need.
But it's equally not the first time that the president is doing this.
Yeah, because that's his character. And that's what we've been sitting here trying to say. Yeah, people are voting for a person and they're disappointed in a person. It has nothing to do with the fact that he comes from the Kenyatta family. It has everything to do with the fact that there are people who actually believed in him as a person, voted him in, but what they're getting is all the allegations that were being thrown back at them.
So what is wrong with that, Gloria, when we acknowledge the fact that yes, we pride in our, you know, in our tribes.
We pride ourselves.
Majoritarian.
We pride ourselves in our tribes, in our ethnicity.
And like Solomon would say, there's trouble brewing in Mount Kenya, and probably that needs
there is a time. There is a time where cultural diversity, ethnic diversity should be celebrated, should be encouraged, and should be empowered. Yes. And I will remind Solomon about when we had the Ineos run.
Yes. We all
who was Kikuyu and who was what and who, and all these stations were reporting. You understand? There is a time for everything. And actually, I want to take it a notch higher. There is also a specific office for certain things. As the symbol of national unity, there are things that you cannot and you should not do. It doesn't matter whether it has been done before, because a horrible precedent does not make it right. You understand? So even if Kibaki came and addressed us about how many wives he had, it does not mean that you going in should now clarify how many wives you have. There are things, as sitting in that office as a president, there are things that you should do and there are things that you should not do. And it's unfortunate that the youth like us have to be the ones to remind these elderly people.
So you say it wasn't proper for the president to go and...
I think as the president, and in the time when he had already uttered tribal kind of incitement kind of things, I think that at that point it's too soon. It's too soon for you then to jump into a vernacular station and start addressing people in vernacular. But having said that, there are points that he was trying to clarify, which that should be appreciated, that it's not really about Mount Kenya and this and that, economic empowerment, the usual, but we all know that we already had that in English, so we know that he was trying to appeal to Mount Kenya, because as the Kieleweki people have said, Mount Kenya has actually been invaded. They say it has been invaded by a person who should not be there, William Samoei Ruto. So that's why I'm saying, at the end of every conversation that we're having between now and 2022, we have 18 months to elections. Throwing anything tribal to me is very irresponsible of any leader. To go to a station or to even try to instigate some kind of tribal animosity or tribal, it's, to me as a leader, those are the lines you should stay away from. And there are certain actions that are taken by leaders. They might not outrightly come out and say we are sending you to war, but it is as a sign. It's actually, I find it very irresponsible of any leader that actually tries to play that card. But there's something that Solomon said that I really have to try and paint a picture, is talking about just because you come from a family that has a name, whether it's Raila Odinga, whether it's Uhuru Kenyatta, from my place we have the Nyachais, all these families, just because you come from that family doesn't mean that your children should then be excluded from leadership or being prosperous. And a lot of people will tell you that they didn't even vote for Uhuru Kenyatta. They voted for the duo because they might not have believed in the Kenyatta brand, but they thought that, you know what, this guy has balanced out, you know, this dynasty thing. We feel that he resonates with us. And so that's what I'm telling you. The people actually went to the ballot and voted for Uhuru Kenyatta.
Which was not free and fair, you think?
Which, with all those allegations, you must respect the will of the people, because in chapter 1 of our constitution, the power belongs to the people. And when they went and voted and they said, this is the person we have, but it feels as though Uhuru Kenyatta knows or thinks, or he has an imposter syndrome where he understands he wasn't voted in by merit. This is why he keeps running to vernacular stations.
But that did not happen, years back. I mean, he's lost elections.
This is why he keeps reminding.
Why is it?
No. This is why he keeps. This is the president who keeps reminding us he's the president. Nobody is questioning you. You're the president. You can't keep saying.
On numerous occasions, the people have told him, you know, speak, crack the whip.
Numerous occasions, the people.
I am the deputy president, and I am not mad.
Allow me. Numerous occasions. Numerous occasions. I literally feel as though, and these are my opinions, numerous occasions when the president is coming to remind us he is the president, most of the times we wonder, where did that come from? Because the people around him and the people who are influencing him
have pushed him to do that.
No, have actually, it's almost as if 2 years ago he woke up and realized, no, I must take charge. And then that is why he's reminding us even now, I'm in charge and I know what's going on. Nobody questions
It's
you.
because people have been talking about this. I mean, on the actual day, that is in Kakamega, you saw the likes of, you know, that is Kotu Secretary General saying, you know what, you need to crack the whip. On numerous occasions, you've had other people saying, you know, Orengo recently said, you know what, President Uhuru Kenyatta, you have to crack the whip. Is there a better way that the president can handle this?
How many times was our former Prime Minister Raila Odinga antagonized and told, you are the Prime Minister, you need to,
and he did not come out to do that.
All right, because when people are confident in their skills and having taken office because of the merits that they have, those kind of talks are not things
are not necessary.
You cannot address it.
Okay, and when he says that he's the president and equally things are going south, then the question is, what is the problem? So we take a short break. We come back with about, you know, we'll be having around 15 minutes or so. We delve into Nairobi and then we call it a day on this one.
When the clock strikes 7:30 p.m.
All right, welcome back to the broadcast. And as we get to wind up on this conversation on matters politics to get into a different one, I think it's only fair that we look at what is happening in Nairobi. We close the initial conversation because, well, it's something that we might not be able to wind up on. But then again, indeed, also a healthy conversation that seeks to bring answers to the questions that bedevil us as a people. And so to Nairobi, and with a special request or approach to it, Gloria would wish to exit the stage, but not before you say anything about Nairobi. Gloria.
I think what we are witnessing with this whole gubernatorial race that has just been cut short is it's not only impunity. It is my friend called it we are heading to a banana republic.
Yes.
A nation that is not guided by laws. A nation that where people do not respect the constitution, do not respect the proper processes and authorities that we have actually, as a people, agreed to put in place. I mean, you look at the process of literally finding any other means to ensure that we don't have a by-election. Like as I said last time when I was here, I told you that the drivers of the impeachment of Sonko had a process that failed. They thought that BBI would have already gone through, and so NMS would have sort of had a peaceful transition. Since Sonko comes out, then, you know, BBI would have said Nairobi is no longer a county, and so therefore NMS would have, you know, taken over the businesses of Nairobi. When that didn't happen, it actually looked very clear that after Sonko was impeached, that we're definitely going for a by-election, because as per the laws that we have, the office of the deputy governor was vacant when Sonko was impeached.
Right.
And so therefore, that vacuum that they were trying not to have was filled in by having the speaker come in to sit in acting capacity for 60 days as we prepared for a by-election. You saw IEBC, you know, starting the process of, IEBC had even given us the dates for the by-election. We had contenders coming in, putting in their papers, and the processes had begun. But because, and this is where the hustler versus the dynasty or the system narrative comes in, because there is a system of people, a circle of people who control this country, who actually oppress Kenyans, did not want for us to go into a by-election, because if you calculated the days of having the by-election of Nairobi, and then they realize if we have the by-election of Nairobi, we definitely we are not going to be able to conduct a referendum. So it has to be one or the other. So what is bigger? The referendum is bigger because it has the expansion of the executive. It's creating business continuity for a lot of politicians. It's giving hope for our president in terms of his political career. So, I mean, of course, then we better sabotage the by-election for Nairobi.
Are you saying that it's cast in stone that we're going to go for a referendum? And in all honesty, Gloria, do you suppose that when you look at the interests of the people of Nairobi, we look at time, it will be a fair process to, you know, take Nairobians through a by-election?
Nothing so far. Everything that has happened since Corona started has not been fair.
Okay.
Not because when we had the Corona, we were forced to go into this building bridges campaign. That wasn't fair. Was that fair? That was not fair. We were dealing with a pandemic. Our family members were dying, but we were being forced to talk about referendums. That wasn't fair. Was it fair that Sonko was impeached in a process that was completely obscure? Till today, when you ask for a list of the MCAs that actually voted to impeach Sonko, you can't get a list. Was that fair? That was not fair. Was it fair, actually, that when Sonko went to court, and he even clearly gave all this, his appeal, including giving the transcripts where we hear the president's relatives trying to influence the kind of deputy governor that he should have. Was it fair that that was ignored and it was just, you know, taken as if it was propaganda, yet he had evidence? You understand? None of these things are fair. So to say, is it fair to take Kenyans or Nairobians to a by-election, or is it fair to take Kenyans to a referendum? It's not fair. And that's the reason why Kenyans have realized it's no longer about justice, it's no longer about our sovereign power, it's about the system. That's what you see them pushing back. And by the way, how many court cases have been launched ever since now? In fact, the swearing in of Kananu as governor has been put to a halt, you understand? Because people are realizing maybe we cannot beat this system fairly. So what do? We do everything that we can as a people because we have the power to try as much as possible to fight for devolution and to fight for our constitution.
Well, whether anything will come out of the courts is a question of wait and see. Probably it's fair that I release you. Thank you so much for the great insights.
Yes.
And we're looking forward to have you some other time. As we cross over to Dr. Moses. Dr. Moses, look at the Nairobi scenario and what it is that we are having today. It's okay. You can go through this direction as we engage Dr. Moses. First, the cases presented in court by LSK and the KHCR, yes, Kenya Human Rights Commission. Do you see a scenario where anything is going to come out of this that will probably be more of the interest of the people of Nairobi as opposed to the systems, as many would look at it, or technically the crisis that would come along with this?
We must exhaust all options that are provided by our laws.
Yes.
And I think it is a strong nation that respects law and order. We have seen in the US, for example, when Donald Trump lost and he said his election was stolen, he went all the way to Congress.
Yes.
And the systems of the US were able to stand strong, and eventually the law will prevail. I think it is in order for what the Law Society is doing to go to court. That is the place where issues should be argued out, and then whatever the outcome, we should respect the law. Since the matter is in court, I would like to argue for or against.
Yes.
All I would say is that as a country, we need to respect laws that we have put in place. So for now, whatever has happened, Kananu, who is a Kenyan, and people from Meru are very excited, and Embu, about her occupying the position. Sometimes you see that, there is a way in which things play, and people are put in certain position. I think I want to congratulate her that she is now the deputy governor of Nairobi.
Okay.
And when you read her story, I think there are many women who will be really motivated. But I must say, for the sake of the nation, I think it is important. The matters that are in court, let them be argued.
In court.
Whatever the judgment that will come, let us all respect. In fact, one of the things that I would like to say, it is important for us to respect our courts. And it is also equally important that the judges listen to the arguments and rule according to the law.
Okay.
That way, our nation will be strong. I am from Murang'a, and I work in Murang'a. That is where the work I do every day is. But I also live in Nairobi.
Yes.
And I dare say that there is something that we, the people of Nairobi, they need justice.
Right.
They need services. Nairobi is the capital city of Kenya.
Yes.
It is the seat of power for the nation.
All right.
Therefore, the president cannot look aside, because if Nairobi is wrong, Kenya is wrong.
Yes. So
and therefore, we all look forward to having a Nairobi that works for everybody. For now, for me, I would say, let the courts decide.
Well,
let me close by just, allow me just 1 minute to say that it was important for the president to address the people of Mount Kenya the way he did.
Okay.
If you go to the ground, you will hear that the people of Murang'a, the people of Nyeri appreciated to hear their president articulate the issues and the vision that are there. It is important because they were not quite clear, and we would urge him to do that more often, so that people can understand. We have seen, and he's not the only one who speaks in vernacular. We have seen many people, whether in funerals or in public meetings, they turn to, there is a time for purposes of communication. There's a time you can be speaking and you realize people are not hearing. If you are William Ruto and you are in a rally in Bomet,
you will speak.
You will speak. If you are Raila Odinga and you are in a Siaya, you will speak. We have seen that, and
yes.
I think we should not condemn our mother tongues.
Right.
If anything, we should celebrate. I look forward
yes.
to our languages becoming stronger so that they can also be Googled.
All right. And you know, my director just said, Tunine, like we wind up. So in this case, as we get to wind up and we come to you in the case of Nairobi, just how much, justification or what amount of justification will be needed, for the courts, or generally what is happening not to be reversed in Nairobi, if at all the interests of the people are, at heart. And I mean, that equally showing a justification that probably the hand of the national government was needed to bring sanity back.
I would say at this moment, and speak like a normal citizen, a common citizen in this country, that we don't need an election in Nairobi. We do not need to set our capital city to a political mood right now. So, by whatever means, whatever it takes, can we avoid an election?
All right.
And let the people know that Anne Kananu was not being appointed to be the deputy governor to Mike Sonko. No, there's nothing like that. She was nominated by Mike Sonko to be the deputy governor for the city county of Nairobi. And that is why even after appointing or maybe nominating her, he could not be able to fire her,
right,
because this is the deputy governor for Nairobi. And I would also say, even as we throw stones to the government or the system or the deep state or whatever you call it, that it is having a hand in trying to bring back sanity to the capital city of Nairobi, let us also go back and ask ourselves, the constitutional watchdogs, who are the judiciary, today they have someone illegally in office.
Yeah.
Which law did Maraga apply in having his deputy,
all right,
in an acting capacity? What Maraga should have done is resign, like Mutuga did earlier, and give way for us to have another Chief Justice. So people must navigate around, because in any case, that office cannot be in vacuum. We must have a Chief Justice.
So we are all known to be a country that flouts the rule of law.
No,
as we wind up, close it.
In good faith, he said, now I'm exiting the stage.
Okay.
This country cannot be in a crisis.
Yes.
I am appointing my deputy,
yes,
Muilu, as the acting Chief Justice, as you guys look for a Chief Justice. And as we wait for 2022, Mike Sonko had already nominated Anne Kananu to be his deputy. There was a case in court stopping her vetting. The petitioner withdrew the petition, and therefore her vetting continued, and she was cleared by 123 representatives,
many would argue,
of the people of Nairobi.
And she says thank you to the president, and so everyone was like, was it the MCS or was it the president? And then why did you swear in the speaker if you knew very well that this is a case that was in existence? Probably you'd have allowed time for that case to, take a different angle before getting to swear in the speaker and many other.
Kananu was honest.
All right.
Thank you to the president, because the president, even yesterday, he confirmed.
Okay.
I initiated the removal of Mike Sonko, who I helped get the position of the governor.
Okay.
The president is just honest.
All right, let's leave it at that.
These guys are unable to work. Let me bring the general, Jemedari. And Jemedari amefanya kazi in Nairobi.
Has he?
We have seen it.
Okay, well, interesting times ahead. Interesting times ahead, I must agree. Thank you so much. First of all, to Gloria Uroba, who just left. I almost said Muliro, and
Gloria should support Kananu. She's a fellow woman.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
Does it get to that point?
We shall now have 3 governors.
Do we all glorify what one would argue as, okay, well, let me not get into that, but sometimes we say we do not glorify what we think is not right, just because we feel like, this is a person who comes from my tribe, comes from the party I affiliate to, or is a fellow woman and all that. We'd love to hear whether she supports that or not, but she said no.
Whenever they get a chance, don't fight them down.
All right, Solomon Kuria, political analyst, thank you so much for the great insights. And Dr. Moses Mwangi, governance expert, thank you so much. We look forward to see you some other time. It's now time that we cross to a different conversation altogether on Matters Land. We all agreed that indeed it always gets emotive when we talk Matters Land, but just how best do you invest on this without having to have regrets later on after this break?